I'm outside right now, and this is sort of where I mix. I've got the
As an engineer, do you consider yourself as the bitch to the artist?
I want to come out to MixNik. Let's talk.
Without any further ado, welcome to our special event today, y'all. The Wavy Seals Elite. We are hosting the one and only Jesse Ray Ernster, man. My man Jesse is a Midwest Canadian kid, a Canadian Midwest kid, man, who is gained a whole lot of popularity for his mixes. Primarily, Doja Boy, Burna Boy, Doja Cat, man, and he's worked on a whole bunch of other stuff. Doja Boy, let's say, hey, strike that. If we edit this, it's probably not. What's up, YouTube? We not
No,
editing this.
do not
We
strike
live.
that. Gotta keep that.
So man, that's my man Jesse. Jesse's also a Grammy-winning mixing engineer, and he has a really unique story. Jesse has a bunch of unique techniques and tools that he likes to use that I'm super excited to learn about and hear from him firsthand. So man, thank you for taking the time out to join us today. This is gonna be a fun talk, and then once we done picking your brain, I'd love for you to show us some stuff inside of one of your sessions.
Woo! Sounds good.
All right. So first question I want to ask you, man. How does, with me being a Midwest kid myself from St. Louis, and you grew up in Minneapolis, I always wonder if I'm saying that right. Minneapolis. How does one come from being a Midwest kid to being one of the biggest mixing engineers in the industry, man? Can you kind of walk us through that? What is it? What was the steps to take to go from the farm? A lot of people think Midwest, they think you're on a farm. I doubt
Dude,
you were
it,
maybe
wa-
on
it
a farm.
was, man.
But tell me a little bit about the glow up, bro.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the steps I took, but there were a lot of missteps, definitely, and a lot of failed mixes and a lot of lessons learned from saying the wrong thing to the client in the room, and I learned the hard way always. But basically came from that world there, where my dad was a musician and a record producer, and we had a home studio. And my mom was a singer songwriter as well, so we had a bunch of instruments around, and everything was always plugged in at any point in time. And we had Pro Tools, so I was exposed to that from a very young age, and just hitting record and turning knobs and transforming tone, and I really got into that. And around the same time, I was beginning to get out and play with bands. So I really came up in the band world. That was like my college experience, was like gigging and being on the road and sleeping in a van and having a sore back and pushing shit into venues at 5 in the morning. And eventually I realized, like, well, I like the tone chasing and dialing in sounds way more than the being on the road part. So I wanted to pivot into that. And in Minneapolis, there really wasn't the scene. There wasn't the label support to like really support all of these different engineers that were there. And everybody was kind of fighting over work and not really getting to charge very much. And all signs kind of pointed to L.A. If you want to work on like pop music and hip hop and R&B, like it would be LA, or country, maybe rock would be like a Nashville thing. At that point in time, this was like 2017, 2018. New York wasn't so much in the conversation anymore. The people I knew there had gone to LA or Nashville. So I wanted to go to LA, so I went there. And long story short, just fast forwarding, I just through networking, I just ended up in the kind of the right rooms and ended up just meeting some of the right people, got introduced to Kanye's camp, and that was my moment. There's a LA moment for everybody, and that was mine. Was getting a shot with him and getting to engineer and record with him and travel with him, and working on those couple of albums, and then getting introduced to Burna Boy's music and his manager, who became, or his A&R, who became my manager. And yeah, it's just a long story of just kind of slithering through and networking and meeting some people, and just trying to vibe and trying to latch onto the good people and trying to stay away from the trouble. And there's a lot of trouble you can get into out here in this city, man. It's
Yeah.
fun. It is.
It's a lot of fun, but it'll take you down the wrong path, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Sweet. So when you moved to LA, did you like go immediately to a studio for like an internship or anything like that? Like how were you able to navigate, or what was your plan once you left Minneapolis and landed in LA?
Yeah, I got out here and I was applying like at all the studios, and I was just doing whatever I could to pay bills. So I was actually singing in two different wedding bands in LA and teaching at the School of Rock in Santa Clarita, which is like 30 miles away, and programming drums for a couple of metal producers and tuning vocals for a couple of pop producers, and I composed a couple short films. So I was doing like all these different odd jobs in the music world, and I was also applying at studios, but like nobody at that time was hiring. So I wanted to get really creative. So my wife is a recruiter, and her thing is like she hires for tech companies, and she's like, dude, you gotta be memorable. You gotta get, you gotta be bold, and that's who you are anyway. You're hyper. I'm like,
Mm.
do some hyper shit, be memorable. And so I filled up my Jeep. I've told this story a bunch of times. Forgive me if you guys have heard it, but I filled up my Jeep, just stacked tall up to the ceiling with these boxes of donuts, bright pink boxes of donuts, with my resume, a colorful resume, taped to the top of each box, and I made a delivery to every studio in the valley until I got a yes. And at the end of the day, NRG was the studio that hired me,
Okay.
the last stop of the day. And I got in there and I learned about the flow and session flow and how things go out here, and how weird it is, and how
How
different it
weird
was
it
from
is.
what I was doing. Well, this is the weird thing. Like everybody would, where I came from, it was like you would melodyne vocals, or you would like export the vocals out and you'd tune them like manually. You'd like draw it. And
Yeah.
out here, everybody's sang through auto tune, and it was like, I mean, this is like not a foreign concept now in 2024. This is how we're doing it.
Right.
But like at that time for me, like this was just a weird world. So those are like the kinds of things I needed to pick up on and had to get used to. And yeah,
That's a dope.
kind of
That's a man. That's innovative thinking. Shout out to your wife for helping to push you to think outside the box, which landed you with a box of donuts that you were delivering. Because I say that all the time. I've taught at college settings, and I try to teach people to like when you're going to look for a internship or a job at a studio, like don't be boring. Like right, you're not going to be an accountant, so don't have that boring resume where it's all black and white and shows no personality. Like definitely bring some flair to yourself, right? What position were you hired at first? Like where did they hire you to do?
unpaid intern for
Okay.
7 weeks.
7 weeks is not. Hey man, you must have been really good intern, because 7 weeks is a short time, man.
Yeah, I had definitely heard of worse. Um, mopping the floors and
Okay.
sweeping up and cleaning toilets, and I will say that the worst cleanup was after a low pump session. I think that guy urinated just about everywhere in the bathroom except for in the toilet. So that was my job as the intern.
Oh man, that sounds like a fun.
Brutal. Um, yeah, and then became a runner. And honestly, the end this the story doesn't go anywhere because I ended up quitting the studio. Things were it just wasn't really the right fit. And
Yeah.
but yeah, learned a lot. That was cool.
Yeah, that's good, man. And the story about cleaning up the bathroom takes me to an idea that I had from I was watching one of your interviews, and you said that you don't mind, and I might be misphrasing this, but it's pretty close. As you don't mind being the artist's bitch. Now, as an
Maybe
engineer, do you
relax on
consider
that.
yourself as an engineer? Do you consider yourself as the bitch to the artist, or what? Tell me about that mindset.
Uh, no, no, no. But I'm definitely the guy though where I'm so focused on getting the team to the finish line, and I'm wanting to prove myself as a dedicated member of the team, because I truly am usually, hopefully, really excited to be on a project, and I want to prove that to them. So like, if I'm inside watching a movie or cooking dinner, like, and I get like mix notes, I'll like step out, I'll go to the studio and I'll hit those notes right away. I want to. I'm usually really it's a combination of being so excited to get it the next step there and get everybody excited and get everybody like maybe ready to approve the mix. And I'm also it's a combination of that excitement and just the anxiety of like the mix hasn't been approved. I why didn't I nail it V1? This is my chance. Let's redeem ourselves. Like
Yeah,
let's get there. There's always the fear, like I've lost gigs, you know, there's the fear of like losing a gig. So I'm
yeah.
um yeah.
No, I feel that. And then,
Okay.
and I get you. I definitely get where you're coming from. You know what I mean? And honestly, like, just the being available, right? And being willing and ready to help at a cause that you feel is like maybe bigger than you, and you feel like you're a part of something that is like really impactful. Like there's nothing wrong with like giving yourself to that and making yourself available to that. And I think that a lot of times we might, as especially as engineers nowadays, especially when you get um uh, uh success and notoriety, like it's having that humility to bring yourself to do that work and be that person that somebody can call on. It can be challenging, man, especially now. You Jesse Ray, man. I'm sure you got a lot of stuff beating at your door, but you kind of maintain that mentality of you're providing a service, and you're happy to do it. I think that's dope.
Yeah. Well, there would be I've heard just so many stories about people who, you know, catch a wave and they experience success and then they do become busy or maybe their turnaround time starts to be like, 2 weeks later they'll get the mix back and
Yeah.
maybe it's not even, it's like it's like the biggest offense. It's the biggest slap in the face you could do to it's like just a disservice. It's like you worked so hard to build this trust with clients you had before or maybe clients you're getting now. It's like they deserve all the same passion and intensity. And if anything, I care way more now because I think the stakes are higher because there's like a lot to lose. And I just yeah, it's devastating to think about things not accelerating upward in the right direction and to be able to continue to work on great music. I'm very afraid of losing this. Like I really want to keep working on music.
Yeah.
I don't want to get a different type of job. So I try my best to like just be of service to my clients. And it's, yeah, we owe that to them, man. We're freaking humble servants. To
Yeah.
hear, we're like a vessel here to like help them pass this freaking their story, their message, whatever they're trying to tell, and get out into the world. Like we gotta do that.
Yeah, man. I love that. I love that a lot, man. And so I think that with that mentality, that kind of drove you to want to put your studio in your home, right? So that you could also be available whenever, whatever. You say like, hey, if you're watching a movie, you can just easily jump up and do a mix revision or whatever. Like for me, I'm in my home studio now, but I've never. This is the first time I just had this place in 2 years. I haven't had a home studio since I was in college, But after that, I was just always, working at a commercial spot, and so now I see that ability, right, to be able to like just, hey, I'm in the bed or hanging with the kids, whatever. Oh, you need something, I can jump it, it'll be done in 10 minutes. Like that's super clutch. Like, do you think that you miss anything by not being in a commercial studio, or are you way more productive being in the home studio?
Yeah, I'm for the most part, I'm way more productive being here because
Yeah.
I don't think it can possibly be understated as far as how important it is to be timely about getting things to clients. Like I think that I get hired back because of the results, but I think I get hired back because of like people always know like we'll get it to Jess and he's gonna have it back and it's gonna be smoking, but
Yeah.
it's gonna be back. Like we're gonna be able to like keep this process moving. It will never be held up.
Yeah.
So that's super important. As far as like the drawbacks of being at home, I don't have that really organic, just random. You don't run into people like in the hallway, and
Yeah.
if especially if you're like you have a lockout like at a big studio where there's always label clients coming through, and maybe you're like kind of the mixer of the building, kind of a thing. Um, yeah, there's a lot that can be gained for that too. But I mean, we're talking like 5-figure monthly fees, like that's just impossible. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. To like be
no,
locking out a studio. Yeah.
I've never had a commercial space. Like, I don't think I could. And now that I have like two kids and like, private
Yeah.
school and like forget
Yeah.
about it. Like there's no way I could add another like $10 of expenses.
I feel you, man. So so with the family, how do you balance that? Being at home working and working on clients mixes and having your family there, like, how do you balance hanging with the kids and doing work? Do you have like hard cutoff times of when you are working and when you're not, or do you
Yeah,
just
I
kind
just
of
work when
float?
they're at school. So like they get up and we get them to school by like 8:30, and then I'm back here by 9,
Okay.
and then pretty freed up till about 4 o'clock.
Okay.
So and then they go to bed, 7, 8, and if there's notes and stuff to hit, I just get back out here after dinner around 8 o'clock, and I can do more stuff. Otherwise, I'd just be back the next morning. And I like the daytimes,
Yes.
it's good. I
Yeah.
value sleep.
Same, man. And you can get into a nice schedule. You don't have to be in studios till 5, 6 in the morning. And oh my gosh, those were the times, though.
Those are times. There's some incredible times doing that.
So in
Yeah.
your home studio, man, how are you mixing primarily in headphones? Since you kind of got kids around and stuff like that, and I know you kind of mentioned that right now you like in an outdoors setting, like doing records. Like, so is it studio monitors? Is it headphones? What is your preferred monitoring preference?
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely on the monitors. I can kind of unblur. I'll show you guys. I'm outside right now. And this is like sort of where I mix. I've got the two speakers behind me. I'm kind of sitting in front of the rig, and then I've got my little
Nice.
rack of gear stuff here, and usually my monitors here.
It's
Uh,
good. This how you know you're in sunny California. It never rains in Southern California,
yeah,
cause
this
I
is kind of the construction zone of my yard right now because that is going to be the new studio right there.
nice.
Um, it's being built and being worked on right now, so here we are. We're outside, but yeah, as far as the kids and stuff, I mean, sometimes they're running around and sometimes there's noise, but it's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Do you ever mix in
Sometimes it's
headphones?
yeah. Well, we were just talking before everybody else jumped in. I love the AirPod Pros. I will do a lot of balancing in there. I
Hmm.
find that they're misleading with EQing, especially at like different volume settings. Like they have like a dynamic EQ based on how hard they're being pushed, like volume wise, which is
Yeah.
some tech that I haven't really exactly figured out, or like why that needs to be happening. But so it can be confusing to EQ in the AirPods. But like as far as balancing the record, like it's really a good reference. I mean, this is
Mm.
everybody, everybody. I mean, it's got to be the best selling headphone of like all time. Like
Right.
everybody's in AirPods. So it's just
Wow.
like that's how it needs to sound good is right in there. Um, Other than that, yeah, I'm doing all the Atmos stuff in Logic in the headphones as well because I just feel like it gives such a good idea of what the speaker array sounds like, and it's just great. It's really a useful tool. It's a good sounding set of headphones.
Nice. Nice. So if you were to step into a room, like with your speakers, and it's an untreated room, maybe in your house, and you had to turn it into a studio to mix in, what would be some of the first like things that you do to address acoustics in the room? Like,
Yeah,
what's your approach to that?
really good question. I have two things. I use this app called Sound Source.
Okay.
Sound Source. It allows you to basically pull up plugins on your master output. So I can, and I'm doing it right now on this system. So I will pull up Pro Q3 like in a room, like I did this at Westlake a few months ago. And then I'll pull up my reference playlist on Spotify, which I have them right here. I'm looking at them, and I'll just hit play, and I will like basically tune the room. And this was the thing that I learned when I was out doing like live band stuff. We would go into a venue, and we always brought our PA, and we always had a 31 band EQ, and that would drive the left and the rights, the mains. And every single room, you kind of had to get a good neutral start. So you had to tune the room with this thing. And so that's just how I treat going into studios now. If I'm not comfy, I need to like get comfy. I'll go in, I'll play the couple of records that I really, really know. I know what
Yeah.
they should be doing, and just move things around until it's like that's like, I know where true north is. That's my reference point now.
Got you.
And
So you
yeah,
just tune the room using a Pro Q3 on the output of whatever you're listening to until it sounds right to your ears.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And sometimes it even takes like two different Pro Q3s. I'll do one that's just left channel
Hmm.
and then one that's just right channel, because sometimes they're just so different and you need to like get them get them sorted. But yeah, I mean, especially in the low end, like if the low end isn't working right, and usually with most of those big rooms, it's like there's just like entirely too much low end, and like I came up on NS10s like without a sub, and then added the sub later, but still, it's just like I'm used to like kind of a lighter, leaner low end.
Yeah.
I don't like it to be like super overpowering. I think, at least for my taste, if I have just like a kind of a low level, almost more of a perceived low end than like an audibly boomy low end, then I'm able to like flex the record and really like pull that stuff out of it. And
Mm.
it's almost like the monitoring quietly. Uh, the philosophy about monitoring really, really quietly is that if you can get it super exciting when it's quiet, then it's gonna be really exciting when it's loud too.
Yeah,
And you're
man.
not fooling yourself with just levels.
So, I want to circle back to your beginnings, man. I know your father's also an engineer, and there's some stuff online with you guys mixing together, and he's,
Yeah,
like I think that's so dope. And you kind of talk about how you grew up and y'all had a studio in the house, and your mom was a singer songwriter as well. Like, so this is kind of giving me hope, because I have a son. He's 11 years old right now. And my wife is
awesome,
also
man.
a singer songwriter, and we have a studio in the house. So I hope my son is like you
Oh,
one
dude,
day. But
it's it's
how
probably yeah, it's already
did he? How
he's
did how
made
did
up
you
for it.
like? Were you like naturally interested, or dad pull you into the studio, say, "Hey, sit down next to me. I'm going to show you something." Like to show how do I get my son interested?
Oh yeah, he'll find his way. For
Yeah,
me, it was just like all I cared about. I was obsessed with drums.
yeah,
Like I started playing drums when I was 5, and not only just playing the drums, it's just like emulating the. I would hear the sound of my snare would be, dead and splatty as opposed to like open and ringy and resonant of like, I was just always experimenting with things and pulling tape off of it and loosening the tuning pegs and just always, yeah. I don't know. No one had to force me.
okay,
My dad always said, uh, "Wild horses couldn't keep him from doing this. It was always what it needed to be." He's just this like stoic cowboy kind of weird guy.
yeah.
Everything has to be a metaphor. Daughter and strength.
Man, I feel like I would like your dad, man. When I see him, I'm like, yo, this dude is cool, and you can tell he's super proud of you. He's like, yes, the lineage continues, man. So that's dope that y'all get to work on music together. Y'all had that time. Have you have you worked on any big records with your pops, or do you ever like lean on them to get some feedback or something? Hey, I'm working on this mix. Tell me what you think. Is that a thing right now, or is he kind of like done with it?
He'll listen to stuff after it comes out now.
And
There
then
were
tell you how bad you are.
Yeah. I mean, no, absolutely not. Not at this
No.
point. He's always like he'll point out something that he would do differently, but at least if I show him something that isn't released, he'll just come up with a list of notes that are all about, that are all just really contradicting the artist's vision. And I have to like remind him like that in this day and age, the job of a mixer is different than when he was doing this job. He's retired from this business now, well, long since. And I think the job of a mixer in like the 80s, 90s, 2000s was you really heavy handed. You were pulling up a tape and pulling up the multi track and like building the song and introducing effects and rearranging. And now like when we get delivered a mix, it's like the session is basically complete. It's like it's more my job to like master it now, to like master the recording than to like totally take all the plugins off and redo everything. I tell him, I'm like, Dad, I'm not going to be able to reduce the reverb on that vocal, you know.
Right.
Plus, he doesn't agree with, the last 10 years of what vocals got really wet, and Lana Del Rey style like wet,
Yeah.
and he doesn't get it. So some of it's there's some differences.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you touched on that because it was actually one of my questions I had for you. Is like, what did you think, like, or like, how would you define the job of a mixer today? In today's terms, and like you kind of summed that up is where you said you kind of feel like you're more mastering the record. You can't be too heavy handed on like changing what the rough mix was and what the artist's vision is. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like that limits you at all, or does that empower you to like kind of really focus on sonics and not have to focus on production,
Yeah, it's honestly every single song is different because like I may have been incorrect to just generalize that that's our job and that's what we do, because like the truth is every single song has a different set of circumstances, and every artist is different, and sometimes we get refs where they're just like, that is the ref mix, but I don't really care what that sounds like. I really want you. I trust you to do your thing, and then I get to dig in and do my thing, and it's cool, and we collab, and then we take it to the next level. Um, I would say though, I guess I've kind of missed the question, but I think our job is to optimize and maximize the recording that we're given, and to just elevate a song to its highest possible potential within the bounds of what we've been given. And sometimes, yeah, we're battling loudness, or we're battling a loud ref, we're battling demoitis of a client, and like, that's okay. Sometimes that could be a fun challenge too. And there were 2 times this last week where I was just like racking my brain, and I couldn't understand why the client was giving me notes back that they wanted it to be closer to the ref. And then I realized, well, it's their song. Let's just do it. And I realized I was being so stubborn, and that the ref was absolutely better than what I was doing. It just was. But for whatever reason, we get in these like I get these like this tunnel vision where I can only hear the song a certain way, and then maybe I'll sleep on it and hear it the next day and be like, what was I doing? The ref was way better. So like, I don't
Yes.
know.
Now, and
I'm
I see you using AB metric a lot, right? And to kind of go back and forth between the reference and your mix. I think that's a crucial step, right? To making sure you kind of staying true to
Yeah.
the
Man,
vision.
how good is that thing? Metric AB,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
plugin alliance plugin. Yeah, load up their ref, volume match them so I'm hearing them at the same, or don't volume match it, and see if I'm hopefully getting up as loud as theirs, if not louder. And then you can also isolate. You can listen to just the sub and compare, what's my sub doing compared to theirs. You can, just the low mids. What's my low mids? What's that like compared to theirs? And that can be really, really helpful too.
Nice, nice, man. Um, so if you were to take one piece of gear from your studio and that's the only piece you could grab, what would it be?
Great question. Mixing gear, or does instruments count? Or...
I would say mixing gear. One piece
Okay,
of
cool.
thing to help you mix a record better. What would you grab? And everything else you just had to work with 2i2.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I recently sort of had to do that. I would say, because I used to have like the Grace 902 like monitor controller, like so fancy. And anyway, packing up all the stuff to like do this construction project, I'm like, I
Yep.
really dumbed the rig down to just like the bare components.
Okay.
I'll see if I can. Oh, I'm blurred. Hold
Yeah,
on, let me
Blade.
blur here. Blur in my background, and now I'm just monitoring through the Apogee,
Okay.
and that's like,
Nice.
this thing is just great. I would say it's the Apogee. It's
Yeah.
like
Okay.
it's the interface, it's the controller, it's it's just awesome. Other than that, like if I'd let's split it into two. The interface
Okay.
is kind of a cheating one. One piece of outboard would be the Whitestone.
Yes.
100%. I'm trying to aim this because I'm so stupid with this camera.
I see it.
The
Yep.
Whitestone tube line amplifier. This thing is dirty, y'all. Holy shit.
What does
So
that do for your mixes?
is a bad boy. Well, I'll show you when we jump into
O-
this session. It's a
Okay.
it just lives on the tube bus. It's a stereo tube line amplifier. So you're basically just I never touch the knobs. I don't change any of the settings. I just run every single mix through it, and then I'll just like adjust how hard I'm going into it. And it's really clean, but it does break up and starts to glow and starts to just kind of light up the sound a little bit, and it just makes everything a little better. It adds a little beef in the low end. It blooms the mids. It's really special. And yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
man. That's dope. And I'm glad that that you say that you don't touch any of the settings because like lately I've been in that mode. I'm using 8816 Summon mixer and I also I
Sweet.
most of the time like in parallel use my Loop Trotter Monster compressor
Yeah.
on my two bus, and then I'll run it through like a pair of 73 amps to come back in just to add a little bit more gazooch, I like to call it. But I used to every mix dial in settings on this stuff and like, all right, let me change the attack and release on this compressor and stuff. And then I have to take a picture, archive it in the session files, and then the recalls were just a nightmare to do going from session to session. So lately I'm like, you know what? These are the settings for that gear. And then just like you said, just changing how hard. If it's not sounding right, maybe hit it a little less hard or hit it a little harder. And otherwise, I'm not touching the hardware at all because going from session to session, I don't want to have to be thinking about, did I change the input level on that compressor?
Yeah.
Like, so
Are
yeah,
you using the width knob on the 8816?
100%
The
all the
thing
time.
is so good.
It
That
is,
thing
man.
is
That's my
so good.
favorite. That's my favorite piece. I pretty much use it primarily for that and driving it, the levels as well. But and I love the fact that I could basically what you call that? Do like parallel compression with the loop trotter so I can determine how
Yeah.
much of that I'm mixing back into the signal. So it's never like fully compressed. I'm just kind of paralleling the whole mix with that, man. It adds a nice little punch. But
Sweet.
yeah, I'm gonna have to check out that White Stone though, man.
It's yeah,
Because
it's serious. It's I it's not like they I bought that thing full price. It's not like they I don't have any affiliation. They didn't That's not an
yeah.
advertisement. I don't
Okay.
want to be I'm super grossed out by slimy, disingenuous product placements, and I think we
But
just see
since
a lot.
you
We see a lot of that these days, and
yeah,
this is not that. This is just a really awesome thing, and it's really new, and I couldn't believe that no one was using it when I heard it on the NAM floor a couple of years ago. So I bought one the next day, and I'm so stoked. It's
man, I
awesome.
hope it's not that good when you play it for us, cause like I don't want to have to abuse my credit card tonight. Like, I don't
Well,
want to
yeah,
have to.
don't go
I
in.
looked up the
Yeah,
price of that thing. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to have to abuse my credit card today.
well, I definitely had to hit the credit card for mine. It took me like a year to pay it down, but
Hey, but it's worth it, right?
yeah, definitely. Well, I wanted to not like it, but I was doing a thing like I really try to not like things. So I'll set up tests where I'll like do a bounce with it,
Mm,
a bounce without it, and then I'll like level match to the nth degree and make sure it's just like when I do a blind listening test, a blind comparison, like I really want to have to squint to be able to tell the difference. And anyway, I got it so close, and I was comparing the two files, a with and without, on like tons of different songs. And every single time, it just felt better with it on. And I always chose the one.
mm.
I always chose it,
Okay.
and I realized like, man, that's if I'm gonna do this on like the highest level, and this is like I'm gonna like pour all of my passion into doing these mixes. I want it to be the best it can be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll always wonder if I'm turning in the mix that doesn't have that extra layer of sparkle that I liked with that thing.
Yeah.
And I tried making it with Saturn. I tried to make a preset that beat it, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody will make a plug-in version of it, and
Exactly. Have you
then
ever
we're all
tried?
off the hook.
Have you ever tried the Black Box HG2?
Yeah, I like that thing.
Yeah.
That's similar. That would be a similar concept, I think. That's like really heavy handed. Um, as far as like the headroom, there isn't enough headroom on that thing. So like uh on the Whitestone, for example, I could get a session in like maybe Berna's engineer would send me something that's like at -7 LUFS, like this is their tracking session. It's ready for mix, but it's already really loud. It's how they like it. Um, and maybe I just need to give it a little more edge, and I need to just clean up a couple things and de-es the, whatever it is. I can put it through the Whitestone, and it'll make it come alive. It's not going to distort. It's not going to like. But if you tried running like a -7 mix through like Pultex or through the black box or like some of
Yeah.
these other pieces of like tube gear, like they just crumple. They don't have you can't drive enough input into them. This thing has really clean tubes that will allow, and like my style of mixing is like I like really heavy kicks and really punchy kicks with a ton of transient.
Yeah.
And most tubes, like vintage tube designs, weren't designed for that. It's just music sounded different then.
Yeah.
Rant over. That's kind of the vibe.
And I just want to say I watched was one of your streaming videos, and I got a chance to look at your desktop of your computer, which gives me hope for life,
Oh
because
yeah.
you too have a cluttered desktop. Not to put you on the spot or anything, but I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
somebody who is has a cluttered desktop like me, man. I always kind of get embarrassed when I'm doing a show, a presentation or something. I'm like, y'all don't look at my desktop, please. You'll think bad about me. But I was like, yes, yo, my man Jesse Ray. That's it. This must be the way that you get Grammy Award winning mixes. Is the desktop clutter.
It doesn't matter what the fucking desktop looks like because nothing happens on the desktop. It's what your session drive and your Dropbox and your backup drives. Like, what does that look like? That's what matters.
Yes.
Desktop
Exactly.
is just where when I screenshot, which I'm screenshotting every single session, I get a one where the plugins are missing. I need to make a quick list. I don't write the list. I screenshot it. And
Got you.
every screenshot hits the desktop. That's just where Apple puts them.
Yes.
So yeah, my desktop is I never cleaned it up.
All right.
Oh,
Before we jump into the session, I just want to ask you a question, and you can probably expand on this when we jump in the session. But my question for you is, what would you say? And I just want to limit it to three things. And like, what three things would you say are a necessity to achieving a great sounding mix?
Oh, man, that's a heavy hitting question.
I'm sure there's more than three, but top three.
Yeah, like concepts or plugins.
Whatever. It could be concept, plugins, it could be gear, mindset, whatever you think.
Good lows, good mids, good highs.
Rise it up.
Nah, just kidding. But it's just like the vocals are the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
And that has to. That's I get like so caught up in kick land.
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s and 2000s, it was like about snare. Everybody was about like having the best snare sound, and like I think that's changed now, and it's more now about like getting the best kick and maybe 808 or log drum or whatever kind of variation there. But like really, it's like about that vocal, man, getting that vocal to speak. And I think I don't know that I have the top three, but
yeah,
getting that to speak and maybe just at least I started to experience a better reception from clients when I stopped getting so surgical and stopped like fucking up their vocals so profoundly. Like soothing this and like multi-band this and like getting a really great like a processed like almost like a Chris Brown or a Drake style like sounding like singing vocal. Like that's really important. You got to process a lot and like really get that shit sounding like really active. Yeah. And that's great. But I mean like just like people I was like over soothing and like thinking I was being a great engineer by like pulling out all the whistly resonances all across and I had the nightmare meme EQ settings where there's 50,000. Like that was me. And sometimes it's still me and I just have to stop. And like the artist is used to hearing that. They've been living their entire life hearing their resonances. the resonance, you know, they might even be a little bit desensitized to some of them. So if we pull even more of them away, they're really going to sound like something is missing to their voice when they hear it back in your mix. So I think that's just the biggest thing that I've had to kind of learn the hard way. I really was getting vocals wrong for so long. And then okay, that's one thing. Getting the low end right, that's another thing.
Yeah. I mean, so ultimately,
like
less
over
is more.
limiting. People ask like, how do you get the kick so punchy? How do you get like a kick to be so active? And I just like I don't do the mixes very loud. Like I don't like limit super hard. However, this song I'm going to show you is pretty loud.
Okay, sweet. Let's jump into it. I know you have a bunch of unique techniques and tools that I think like no other engineers really are using and talking about. So I would love for you to kind of show us your special process. Okay, let me.
All right, cool.
Everybody too. Sorry, by the way, I just dropped the listen to link in the chat. So make sure y'all click on that so we can hear this.
Cool.
And I'm gonna mute my mic as Jesse takes over. Oh, actually, I'll just.
Like dominoes, I can make your walls fall down. This woman knows how to make the world go round. And just like gravity, we breaking ground. I'll be your home.
Okay, cool. This song is called My Love by Leanne Pinnock and Ira Starr. And I'll try not to play too much of the mix together just for takedown type issues.
Okay.
But I'll give you kind of the layout of this session. This was a really, really track heavy kind of thing that came in multiple versions. Let's see. Yeah, we made it all the way up to version 2.3, which means 22 revisions. And this was through Warner UK, and the A&R and the producer and the team and Ira Starr's team. Like everybody had notes, and we were also like rearranging the song. So like new files came in all the time. We were also like moving things around. Here's something really interesting that I kind of like to do that might be kind of interesting to you. It's certainly interesting to me because it really, really helped me do a faster workflow. They wanted an alternate version that had like an extended intro for the music video of the song. So like all the way through the process, every time we would make changes to the mix, they still needed both versions. I needed to send them both versions of the song. And this was something that Tizio turned me on to a few years ago. And this was the whole deal that like, well, instead of doing a save as and changing the arrangement, you know, take the whole arrangement and sprawl it out down the timeline somewhere else and just make different markers. You know, so when I have the regular bounce, I would bounce it here like this, bounce. And then when I was done with that, I would hit this one and bounce this down here. And now I'll even get different versions of the song where I'll like, you know, I'll have maybe like 3, 4, 5 different versions sprawled out across the session. And that can really kind of help. I think people kind of forget that we have like, you know, 10,000 minutes of audio in these sessions.
Exactly.
So like you really could do a lot.
Yeah, I do that whenever I do like clean versions of a mix. I used to do a save as, but now I just like do exactly the same thing. I just put
it's clutch, man.
Yep.
It's so good. Okay, I start with like bass instruments at the very top. I like to have bass 808s, log drums, and we've got a bunch of that kind of stuff going on here. Let's see. And then right below that, we've got some drums. Maybe I'll just hit play and I'll just kind of let things go here. Got a whole bunch of drums. Oh my gosh, so many drums in Brown. And then I put all the sound effect type stuff, risers, explosions, claps with verb, that stuff is black. Anything sample-y, like a sample or like sampled vocals or a sampled recording, I make those pink for whatever reason. Got guitars are blue and all keys, pads, synths are like teal. And then we got kind of this mess of vocals and vocal effects.
It's like a flood raining coming from above, and just like gravity.
Okay. So that's kind of the layout of this intense song. As you can see, it's like pretty messy, and just like chaotic.
It's definitely a lot going
And
on.
it's just sometimes it just gets that way. And especially when you're getting notes in and you're trying things. And I think at one point I was on Audio Movers with Progression, who was the producer of this, and he was just like texting notes while I was, just trying stuff. And I think sometimes it's better to just throw paint at the canvas and just move things around and just get a little messy and then come back later and clean it up. Or in this case, don't ever come back later and clean it up. Just leave it totally messy.
Roger that.
Yeah. Wavy, do you want to like guide or like tell us
Sure.
what kind of stuff we want to dig into or
Okay.
look
So
at on this?
yeah, man. So I guess let's start off with one thing that I thought was really interesting. I heard you speak about it and never saw it in action, is like your array of reverbs and other effects that you set up in a session, and how you're kind of easily able to audition a bunch of different effects. I see you got a bunch of
Yeah.
effects tracks, so if we can talk about that and take a dive in there, that'll be dope.
Yeah. 100%. So I have essentially a one lead Vox S bus that's basically like the bus that's actually, hold on. Vox M. Oh yeah. This is the bus that's receiving all of the lead vocals. So let's find all the lead vocals, which are red.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no, I'm not actually using the lead. No, I'm not using that in this case. Am I using any of these effects on this song? I'm not actually. I can talk
Okay.
about it, but
Okay.
in the case of this song, they sent a vocal and then they sent separate effects.
Yep.
But if they hadn't, I can certainly give an example of what this would kind of sound like.
Uh-huh.
Let's go ahead and just send. If this were my lead vocal in any other circumstance, I would send it to one thing because that just is really easy for me. The effects run.
Okay.
And that is this bus right here. The volume of this bus is all the way down because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't actually produce audio. But this bus sends out to all these little buses: plate, Pro R, shimmer, shift, room, VX. I don't even remember what that one is. Delay.
Mm-hmm.
And from here, I can even just hide that one because it usually doesn't matter very much. But basically now, all of these effects over here are active. And I'm going to get out of wide fader view.
Okay.
So now I can kind of get creative with just like quickly blending. I'll just show you how that kind of goes usually. We're going to pretend that it's super, super dry and not verby.
Rhythm it vibrates.
Yeah. Let's find a part where she's actually singing. There we go.
Take off my love,
Okay, we'll just do that. We'll move that there. Okay, and then really quickly, I can kind of just.
Tell me how much can you take off my love, my love, my love, my love. Not a heart on earth can beat my love, my love, my love, my love, my love.
Typically I start with quarter note. I have this dirty quarter note, kind of dark
Tell
delay.
me how much can you take off my love, my love, my love, my love.
I usually go with a little slap after that, a little eighth. Maybe a little bit of this thing. And I'll start bringing in some verbs after that. And for whatever reason, my feed is completely mono right now. So whatever you guys are getting, I'm really sorry because I truly can't gauge how much effects I'm dialing.
Yeah, it's giving. I'm hearing
but
stereo.
I think you got to get the idea that I have like 20 of my favorite effects, like 10 delays, 10 verbs that are just like really different from each other, different colors. And I could just really quickly dial things in. And usually against the song, I'll do that, not solo, but I'll do it in the mix of the song. I'll like just pull one up and be like, oh, that's nice. That's good there. And just balancing the effects and really positioning the vocalist to feel like they're in the space where the song is being performed.
Dope, dope. That's an interesting technique. So like if you have by doing this, I'm just imagining like if you set this and this is mainly for your lead vocal, what if you had backing vocals and stuff like that in a session that you wanted to add some effects, but you needed them to be slightly different? How do you address that?
Yeah, I have the same thing, but it's here, it's right here. BGV effects run. Show
Aha.
and make an active. It's the
Got you.
same thing. It's a little more stripped down because I just haven't updated it.
Yep.
But yeah, basically, you got a quarter, your eighth, 16th, your shift, which is like a time adjuster, just emulating what like a micro shift or an H3000 does. Uh,
Mhm.
and then for whatever reason, I was into following that up with like an SSL by driving the SSL to get some distortion. I'm
Okay.
not really into that anymore. And some slap, and then all of those delays feed the reverbs, and
Okay. Hmm.
then I'll kind of bring in the reverbs after. I think it's just really, really crucial to get verbs to stay out of the way, to have delays trigger the reverbs instead of the vocal actually sending to the reverb,
Hmm.
because there's so much pre-delay and the verb can stay back and it seem to doesn't seem to pull the vocal back as much. I can keep the vocal way up front. And let me see if I'm doing this other thing here that I do quite often. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
doing this on the Master Effects bus. I have this like this is a thing I took from John Castelli, and because like I used to do this type of thing where you have all of your verbs and delays are going into this one bus called effects, and so this is everything,
Yep.
all the verbs and delays. And to really get them to fit, I had to cut out all the highs and all the lows and then really carve out the mids to like find a space for the reverb to live, which like oftentimes works really, really well. Um, but lately, if I just do this thing, in cut mode,
Tell me how much can you take off my love, my
like
love, my love, my
this
love. Now
isotope stabilizer is sort of like a Gullfoss, like just a dynamic EQ that just like sort of rides and just balances.
Nice.
If there's a really deep resonance that starts to build up somewhere, it'll pull it out. It just
Hmm.
takes a lot of the manual automation work out of it,
Nice.
because yeah, sometimes a vocalist, there'll be that really resonant like 400 thing, or like a oh, they'll sing and they'll be like oh, and then you hear like you hear all of it overloading in the verbs too, and just starts to muck everything up. So it's really nice to have this thing just like riding those resonances, and
Nice.
then I can just ride that overall effects, the level of that fader, and just
Yeah.
dial it in until it feels right against the vocal,
Nice. And
and it
then so
seems to
no
work.
so typically in a mix, like all of your vocals will kind of pretty much main all the lead vocals will have the same effects and the background vocals will kind of have those same time-based effects as well. Is that kind of where you lean in to put them all in a similar space?
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes background vocals, sometimes like, I get that note a lot where they're like, oh, we want Travis Scott background vocals, where they want like
Hmm.
really dramatic space. You might have like a really dry rap vocal up front and then really dramatic, it depends what
Yeah.
they're kind of looking for. But yeah, if I'm trying to build like this cohesive, like believable sonic reality where like the song is being performed like on a stage or in a room or in a cave or in outer space, like to where where things just don't, where it's all going to be compelling and believable.
Yeah. I heard you say before that you do some stuff to try to make the vocal sound expensive, or there's a technique or something that adds the expensive touch to a vocal. Like how if you were to process the vocal, I know the vocal in this session is like it kind of came in how you needed it to be for the most part. But like how would you go about making a vocal have that expensive sound?
Yeah, in addition to like top end, definitely top end is super important. It would be this like this shift stuff. So I have four of these different time based like micro shifty type of buses that are all kind of doing a different style of it.
Okay.
Um, and then they're all going to this master fader called like shift, and then I'll just adjust the effect overall. But like one of them is just the H3000 with doubler 2 mode. And I just recently got an H3000 hardware version. I have to go pick it up, but I'm really excited because everybody says that it's quite a bit different than the plugin, so I'm super stoked.
Okay.
But that thing followed by some NLS. Like I said, I at this time I was into like overdriving the widened version of the vocal. I thought it warmed it up a little bit and softened some of the sibilants and S's, and that could be kind of the drawback of blending those in, is you can get a lot of like chicky types of kind of high frequency transient consonant type stuff. Okay. But another one is a little micro shift followed by another NLS. I don't think that's a must. And then time adjuster, I was just doing a few different time adjuster settings. Well, actually, no, they're the same. So that would kind of sound like, you know, if I had.
Tell me how much can you take off my love, my love, my love, my love. Not a hot on.
And again, my feed is mono right now. So
yep. We're getting it. No, we're definitely getting the
Tell
stereo
me how much
effect.
can you take off my love, my love, my love, my.
Yeah. I'm
so is this
there? Just balancing it.
Is this kind of similar to like a Haas effect type of thing? That's happening by creating that?
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Dope.
Yeah,
man.
it's and I don't think this is like anything groundbreaking. I think at least a lot of the sessions I receive, I see a lot of people doing microshift in parallel, or you know, even the CLA Vocals has like a kind of a widening type thing, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
H3000 parallel is like the oldest trick in the book, but it really works, you know. It can really give a thing. It can also it can make things sound 2000s like way fast. You know, I don't know how often you'd hear that on like a you don't want to bring that out for like a Motown style.
Gotcha.
A soul record or something.
Yeah, it'll definitely kind of time stamp that mix. Another thing that 100%. You're super you know, kind of known for in your mixes, man, is the percussion, especially obviously with the Afro beats, having that percussion like hitting just right is like super important. You have any kind of tips or strategies on how you approach that, or in what's been working for you?
Yeah, Wayne, I do.
I imagine you do. That's why you're the Afro beats man.
Yeah, so here we got a bunch of drums going on here. Yeah, man. Side note, I do regret just how. I mean, I knew at the time of doing this mix was just a little bit too loud. I'm like tempted to just turn it down just a little bit. It's like that's one of the drawbacks. Is like I told the team, like, we can go loud, but the kicks will start to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to take that back.
Oh yeah.
Why am I not hearing that? I'm not hearing that at all. That's because it's the wrong thing.
Right.
Let's take it back with the fader. I don't know. Some might argue that it was more exciting before. Okay. Yeah, definitely for me with kicks, like I have this aesthetic where I just like need to push 1K.
Okay.
You know, somewhere between 1 and 1.6. Like, it's just like, if I exaggerate that, like, it just looks like I'm doing some, and then I'm taking it away on the next plugin.
That's engineer's mindset for you.
Yeah. Actually, without everything, it sounds a lot more balanced, I think. Like, it sounds like a natural kick. I'm assuming that in the mix, this like really, those pushes were like really helping that kick to just poke through and knock.
Yeah.
Let's find out. It's so fun. I
Yeah.
just love boosting, man. And what is this? Like, yeah, you'll notice like on a lot of these beat tracks, like I don't have any plugins either. I'm just
Yeah.
a lot of the time these records, it's just like balancing them and finding out how to gain stage into the master to like get things speaking
Yeah.
nicely. You
I
don't need to
love
go
that.
into every track and have like 5 plugins on every track. Like a lot of these, it's just good right away.
That's right. If it ain't broke,
Um,
don't break it, right?
yeah.
Let's
So
talk
I
about
mixed
this
this.
plugin too. Yeah, while you in
Yeah,
that.
split EQ is really cool because green is your, on every band you have two options. You can boost the transient or
Mhm.
the tonal information. So either the initial the initial like just hit, the initial impact, or like the sustained stuff that kind of comes after.
Mm.
And on something like this, like I'd be really, oh yeah, I can hear what it was without. There's really no impact in the upper mids, right?
Right.
And like I really wanted that thing to kind of carry through.
Oh yeah.
It's like a transient designer, but you can pick where it goes.
It was just hitting the transients and
Yeah, I mean that's night and day.
yep.
Because I mean, otherwise, if you could boost all the sustain stuff too. Yeah, there wouldn't have been any drawback to boosting with a regular EQ there either.
Yeah.
And on this
Gotcha.
specific instrument, I don't think there is anything like really negative in the sustained like tonal aspects of this sound. That would have been
Oh.
fine.
Do
But I
you ever
used
use
split
that?
EQ.
Yeah. I was gonna say, do you ever use that on vocals? And if so, how do you have that approach?
Yeah, my old assistant, Mix Giant, he turned me onto that. He said you can use the green band or the blue band really, but you can cut the transient information wherever. If you have like a ticky or an SE type of vocal, you can really, it's like a pretty
Mm,
good de-esser.
got you.
Um, it looks like I'm also using spiff here to like just add some transient to this snare part. Just adds a little more, pulling out some top end. I don't know how much of a difference that move is making really, but sometimes we just make moves. We
Yeah,
need a
yeah.
move auditor to like go through your mix and be like, was that really necessary?
Yes, it
Maybe I
felt.
have like a compulsive tendency. I just like need to fuck up the song.
All right. Now I
Yeah, but I
definitely
mean that's
before we
that's it.
yeah, man, before we run out of time, I definitely want to kind of hear the difference between the white stone and with and without if we can kind of experience
Oh
that.
yes, absolutely. So that would be, maybe I'll just run through the sequence of plugins on the master right now,
Yeah.
and then that the white stone is like the fifth in order.
Okay.
First thing I have is the spectral shaper, and that's really just like babysitting some of that stuff. You have to be careful not to overdo it, but when you really overdo it, you can hear how much you're overdoing it. But when you pull it
Hmm.
away, you can really hear like how much of that noisy frequency was there. I'm gonna do that one more time.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
Like that frequency. Anyway, that one was pretty cool.
I just want to interject here. At what point in your mix do you start adding these type of processes on your mix bus? Like, do you start doing your two bus processing?
Yeah, incredible question. So, pretty much right off the bat, when I am like building the beat and like assessing like the kick and the bass and how all that's gonna like how much that's gonna drive the load,
Yeah.
and you pretty much got to get that gain staging like and the master bus set up right away and start
Okay.
building with it in like right off the bat.
Got you. So you pretty much start off with, after you kind of set your
Yeah,
initial levels, you start to moving over to the master processing.
yep. And most of the time, like, I'm not needing anything more than this. I'm just doing Whitestone Gold Clip Pro L2.
Mm-hmm.
In the scenario of this mix where the ref was like -8, like I needed to find ways to compress the mix to compact it in order to drive it louder. So in comes this thing. I had this TDR Nova plugin, and it's just compressing. It's just helping to kind of it's sort of this dialed in with like SSL settings. So it's just behaving like a glue style SSL compressor, and it looks like I'm just boosting the low mids a little bit.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, I don't remember why I would have done that. I think maybe I got a note that like the mix needed some warmth, so maybe I would have boosted that. That could have been why.
Okay.
And then I'm also using the Vac Attack. And this is a plugin that we made that's just really, really good at compacting things, but keeping transient at the beginning and also blooming at the latter end. It's just like it's a fluid compressor that's like really good for buses and I'm driving it at about 76% mix with like 3 dB. Let's hear it with and without that. Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's like way less exciting, right? Because it compresses and gets quieter.
Yeah, but it's gonna allow you that headroom you need though to make it loud.
Yeah, it's gonna allow us that headroom. Oh, and I didn't have the trims in, so. Oh yeah, so that truly, when my trims were in, that's what it's like without the Vac Attack.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of parks it. This is not my ideal way to mix, where like you have a really compact, like compressed, parked in kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
I don't think I excel at this type of mixing, to be honest. I like punchy kicks, and I like things to be kind of imbalanced, and I like the kick to be really loud. And but this fucker just needed to be loud, man. So okay, I have a trim going out. That's determining how much I'm sending into the Whitestone. So that's 6.4 dB going into the Whitestone. Let's
set
just
that up as a hardware insert.
Yep, I'm just gonna loop like 2 bars, and every 2 bars I will bypass. Can you guys see when I zoom in? Is that zoomed or is that still?
No. Zoom doesn't allow you to zoom, but we can see it.
That's all good.
Yep. Apparently,
right,
that's their name.
I'll bypass every 2 bars. I don't hear any difference in my mono feed. Does anybody?
I hear the difference. It's definitely a subtle difference, but it seems to like open and expand the mix up. Like when you bypass it, it kind of feels a little more narrow and a little more boring in the mid range. But then when it's on, I can hear it kind of just pop a little bit more. Everything just kind of pops.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's hear it. Let's hear 2 different bars in a different part of the song. Actually, let's do it with the part that has the beat playing. Yeah, kind of get the idea.
Got you. Yeah.
And then
Sweet.
right after that, we got some gold clip. And generally, I'll go into my setting here. I'm just gonna like reset it. I'll show you like how I would dial this in, like if I were dialing in my mix.
Nice.
I start up here, I hit the link button and the unity button. The link button is gonna allow me to like, it's gonna allow me to drive in and add the level I need without hearing any additional gain.
Yep.
That's gonna help me like determine when the distortion is becoming a problem, when I'm going too far. And then same thing here for this secondary clipper that they have is the gold clip. Like that's this, I'll be able to turn that up without adding gain too. So I'll usually start like when I'm leveling the mix, I'll start by just turning this up, well, with my thing that's like eyes closed, ears open. It's where I'm like, I grab the slider and I'm just moving it around. I'm not looking because I don't want my eyes to fool me. I really want to get it to a place where like my ears are telling me that it sounds its best. And then I'll usually, I can't really tell in this mono feed whether that's working or not, but like, then I'll like turn those off and then I'll reset the output to 0. Now I know I've developed a clipped sound that's like perfect and the output is as hot as it could go.
Yep.
That was the setting I arrived at before. And then I'll go into like a Pro L2, sometimes 2 different Pro L2s, but then I'll dial that the exact same way. I'll go in and I'll hit this like 1-to-1 auto gain mode. And I'll turn up the limiting, and this one is really evident. Like this one will tell you when it's like, you'll hear it start to like turn down and like get terrible. And then I'll turn that mode off, and then I'm like loud. And sometimes it's fun to go in and like, do that maybe with like, you can do a second one with transparent mode with like a slower attack, maybe a slower release. Sometimes then the client is like, yeah, we still need it louder. And it's like, I can't get any louder. I can't possibly go louder. Maybe you just got to push 1K, like really. Sometimes pushing 1K, like that's the mid-range, it's your perceived loudness. That's the way you can like get it a little further. Anyway,
now, are you normally sending these off for mastering, or are you the last step on
this? I definitely like to have somebody master. Usually Gerhard Westphalen does a lot of the stuff. Dale Becker is the other guy I like to use.
Yeah.
So
would you remove the limiter and the clipping before then, or send it as you have it?
And I could show you an email I wrote today. I like to, because I used a new mastering engineer today and I wanted to explain to them. They asked me for the non-limited version, and I said, man, we all really agreed on the balances that we set up. Like we worked really hard to get this song sounding this way. Taking these off,
it changes everything.
It kind of does. And then honestly, it leaves it way too up to chance that they're going to dial in their clipping and limiting to behave to the pulse the same way. Like, if you really smash the limiter, you turn your attack and release. Like, there's a lot of different scenarios. There's a lot of different, and it's all subjective. Everybody has different opinions about what's right and what's like. But I just don't want to leave it up to chance. It's like, we dialed this in. We got the beat feeling good. I'm the mixer of the song. I should be in charge of getting the beat to feel good. I think, and my view nowadays is like, I want to set up the level of loudness which I just did. And I don't think a mastering engineer should add any additional loudness to what I did, because usually they can't do it without adding distortion.
Gotcha.
And making it smaller sounding and ruining the kick transient. And I just want a mastering person to just get in with, pull out some little resonances with EQ and fix any little imperfections, maybe do some imaging and like whatever they can do to just clear up like a half dB of headroom and make it feel more open. Make some cuts.
Sweet.
Yeah, I don't want them changing I've had like some of my favorite mixes that I did that are out are like got ruined in mastering, and it's just really sad.
Yeah, I'm glad you that you shared that part about the mastering and communicating, you know, how you feel about working with a master engineer, because like I too have that you know, happen with me, and I'm working with a client, and you know, maybe the client chooses the master and engineer, and then I listen back and I'm like, dude, this is not my mix. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I don't like it. And then a lot of times for me, I feel I'm like, should I be so critical of the master because maybe I have some demoitis of my own mix now? So like, and maybe it is better, maybe not. But then I'm like, nah, it's not. So let me go back and, you know, have this whole conversation. So sometimes that happens. Yeah, man. I know you got to jump, man. So have fun. Enjoy your family.
I do it.
Good luck
Taco
with the
Tuesday.
studio.
I promised the girls I'd make them some tacos. I gotta
yes, indeed.
go turn on the fryers now.
Yo, go jump on that, Jesse. Thanks, man. You are an honorary Wavy Seal Elite, so you know anytime you want to come and join us, please come tap in.
I want to come out to MixNik. Let's talk.
All right, bet. We're gonna make that happen.